Hi, my name's Eric Garcia, and I have a chance to be with truly the one and only H. Norman Wright, publisher, speaker, writer. Been there, done that. We're going to have a great conversation today. Norm, welcome. It's good to be with you again.
It's good to be here with you.
Awesome. You know, today, marriage is being talked about in a lot of different ways. Oh, you should wait longer to get married, or oh, you should do this, or you should take this tool, or this is the book that will help you have the successful marriage. With all your experience and background, talk with us a little bit about if you were teeing a couple up for a successful relationship. Talk to me a little bit about what marriage looks like out here and then how do you get them there? How do you get people to that point where they're walking in a proactive way into successful marriage?
Oh boy. I'm going to draw on a lot of things because, you know, I've worked with hundreds of couples ready to get married. And, you know, what it comes down to is a daily reaffirmation of your commitment to that person and to that marriage. And having that as your focus and not, okay, the wedding's over, we're back into our routine, and letting it drift.
Right.
You know, drifting marriages are the ones that get into difficulty, but it's just really being very, very intentional. And as you know, I'm newly married again.
Right.
And I'm getting married in the seventh decade of my life.
Wow.
And one of the things that we are doing that I would encourage even younger couples to do is that two things. One, every month, go back over and restate your wedding vows to one another to remind you of what you have committed yourself to. Then in our situation, we're doing something really kind of bizarre. And it was a friend of mine that suggested this to me. We are not celebrating our wedding anniversary once a year. We don't have that luxury at our age. We are celebrating it once a month. So in 2 or 3 years, if you ask, Norm, how long have you been married? And I say, we just celebrated our 27th anniversary. And you're looking at me like, well, we lost it. But I had a friend that would say it's my 325th anniversary, 326th, because they celebrate it. You don't ever want to take your marriage relationship for granted. It's got to be a priority. And you've got to keep it out there because there's so many things that really get in the way to, you know, let it just sort of drift.
Yeah. Well, and you think of driftwood.
Oh, yeah.
And it really isn't good for much after
No,
it's been running in the water long enough. And so you translate that to a drifting marriage and you're going, wow. Yeah. I mean, if just that word picture is incredible. You know, you talked about you being a newlywed and we're really talking about how do we tee up people for successful marriage. You know, as you think of the books you've written, all these people you've counseled over the years, if you had just like 3 golden nuggets that in the premarital stage, and then I want to get to the sustaining side of your marriage. So you talked about celebrating your marriage as a big theme you just talked about. Right. Talk to me a little bit about how do people walk into this thing with their eyes open? What should they be looking for, maybe not looking for, in a mate for life?
You know, the purpose of marriage is not to make you happy.
I struggle with that.
Okay, I know. Yeah. That's why I said it. It's not to make the other person happy. It's to glorify God because we're created in His image. And one of the things that I suggest is you look at that other individual to whom you're married and realize that you've been given the responsibility and the privilege of helping to draw out the image of God in that person, which means the way in which you treat them, the way in which you respond to them, the way in which you talk to them is so very, very important.
Oh, now you're getting personal, Norm.
Yeah, I know. Jennifer told me to.
Okay, you prepped this meeting with my wife.
The other thing I think that is so critical, and it goes back to the passion I've had for the last 20 years of dealing with loss and grief, that when you marry, make sure you look into your past to see what it is that you have not faced, that you have not fully grieved over, because you're going to take that into the relationship. And if you go into a marriage as a wounded individual, okay, you develop a balance there. Maybe both of you are wounded in some way. And one of you finds healing, finds restoration, finds that you can move ahead. Well, that can actually disrupt the balance of the marriage.
Wow. Yeah, I not thought
because
of that.
You're not the same as when you're married. And you're always going to be changing, and you have to have that flexibility. But still, make sure you've looked at if there's been a trauma, if there's been damage, deal with it beforehand.
And do you deal with it together so the other person knows what you're experiencing in life?
Both. You deal with what you need to deal with individually, if it means counseling or whatever, but then the other person needs to know. For example, in my marriage now, I ask my wife the question, what is there about the difficult relationship that you had for many, many years that I need to be aware of so that inadvertently I don't say or do something that would remind you of what you went through.
Trigger that response.
It would be a trigger. And so that's something that we will be working on for some time, I'm sure. Because if you've been married before, like both of us, then you have that as a background.
Right.
It affects your expectations, it affects your goals, and you've got to realize here is a unique individual, whether it's second time or first time.
Right.
And you need to really discover who that person is. And of course there's going to be differences.
Absolutely.
Celebrate them.
Yeah.
Don't look at them and say, man, you're different. Wow, you're wrong.
Yeah.
No, it has nothing to do with wrongness. It's, okay, that can stretch you. I've been stretched more in the last month than I have for years because, being single for several years, then a caregiver for several years, you get into ruts and routines. People ask Tess and say, what was it like? Was Norm's home more like where a single man lived? She says, it was more like a kennel.
Kennel. I think I understand why she said that.
2 dogs, 2 cats.
Right. And that's just on your voicemail machine. We've been talking a little bit about this new website that's being launched called Start Marriage Right. And it's going to be a hub of content, a hub of helps. And we've always said that we need about 12 different organizations to do exactly what we're trying to do, which is bring people together. Share with me a little bit about when you think of a resource like that, you think of the assets that God's given you to steward over, and just the needs of people. Start Marriage Right. Boy, if we could get people into this site, what might be there, if you will, from not only you, but what's it mean to be able to have a website where all this content is there for people to get their hands on early on in their relationships?
When I started ministry, there was maybe 3 or 4 Christian books on marriage. That was it.
Wow.
Today, there's an abundance.
Yeah.
Don't take it for granted. Don't neglect it. Don't think because you came out of a good, functional family that you know what you need to know, because we don't. We don't.
Yeah.
What you need to do is just to immerse yourself and gain all this information and then begin to apply it, because when you marry, 5 years from now, that marriage is going to be different. Yeah. It's going to be unfolding all the time. And instead of just going on past experience, on your own family, or what you've seen in the movies, or what your friends have said, which are not experts.
Yeah, the movies have really,
Go ahead and draw on this good information and do some countering of old tapes that you've got, of false information, and just be open to learning and growing.
Yeah.
That is critical.
Yeah. So if you're open to learning and growing, you'll be able to take a website like this and be able to sift through a lot of resources that will benefit you.
Right.
Now, you've got 2 recent books that you've published, and I always tend to get the names right, but I think it's, what are they?
Okay. How to bring out the best in your spouse, how to bring out the best in your husband. Either that or bringing out I don't remember.
Yeah.
I wrote it. But basically, the whole purpose of these books is how to affirm your partner, how to bring out the best, how to encourage them, how to believe in them. Very positive oriented. That's the purpose.
Wow. I don't know if you want to expand on this much, but on maybe a couple of key principles. But I always tell people, when you launch a business or launch a ministry, you can't do it if the closest people to you don't believe and encourage you. And I always say, Jennifer has always been my biggest cheerleader. And I talk to other people, and it's like their spouse doesn't even know what they're doing. And I'm thinking, I don't know that I could survive that way.
What you've got to be is like a prospector or a deep sea diver, where you're searching for riches that have not been discovered yet. And when you see something, you talk about it. You need to give several compliments a day.
So I love you does not count necessarily.
No,
you need to dig
look
beyond
for something. Don't take anything for granted. If you find your clothes, I mean, my clothes now are neat. They're orderly. They're in the drawer. I can't believe it. This is my stuff, and I said, wow, this is great. Thank you so much. I'm having to relearn my kitchen because everything has been changed around, but it's more functional now. And instead of saying, this is a pain in the neck, I've got to learn something new.
Right.
No, thank you for stretching me. Thank you for helping me find something different.
Yeah.
When I go out and have to speak, I ask, how does this look? I don't want to, okay, I want to, that looks good. Or why don't you dress like this?
Yeah. Some helpful
Be open.
hints.
Be open.
Well, that encouragement piece, I think, is a big deal. I think I get caught just in the rut of life and the stress of life, and you forget that you need to be the one that's the encourager, not always being the one that maybe dumps and needs to be encouraged or expects to be encouraged.
Yeah.
This is fun. We've been with H. Norman Wright. We've had a few moments of time, and I want to thank you for it. It's been rich, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you, Norm.
Thank you.